It's 23 to 9. The dates have been set for the consultation sessions regarding the controversial local environment plan changes. The state government advised councils not to include restrictive E2 and E3 zonings in their new LEPs until the department had reviewed the zonings and how they worked in our region. Joining me this morning to explain this process is Mark Skelsey. He's from the Department of Planning and Infrastructure. Good morning.
Good morning, Joanne.
Did the environmental zonings cause as much angst elsewhere in the state as they seem to here in the Far North Coast?
They have a little bit. I think it's fair to say that the Far North Coast has probably been the major area of the state where they have caused a lot of debate, perhaps a little bit on the South Coast as well, but the Far North Coast has been probably the primary area in New South Wales.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, I think it's without question that the Far North Coast is an area that includes both farming land, and it also includes obviously a lot of biodiversity as well. Our Far North Coast regional strategy, which we released in 2006, pointed that out. In fact, I think it might have been 2007. And as a result, the interaction between the farming and the environmental land and how you actually plan for that in planning instruments is a very live issue. And this is why we're having a close look at this in this review.
What's the government's intention with regard to this process, and particularly the E2 and E3 zones? Was it meant to lock up land that perhaps farmers might have used as protected zones? Was it meant to expand environmental zones?
Well, clearly we've said that the Minister announced in September last year concerns about the placement of environmental zones on land that was clearly predominantly rural land. And in that time, as you've stated in your preamble, announced that we would not be supporting the use of these new environmental zones, and I can explain a little bit of background about why they're new environmental zones, as councils are rolling out their new council-wide local plans. What we're trying to do here is, one, consult with the community about it, and that's why we're announcing these sessions. We're also trying to undertake an evidence-based, to some extent a site-by-site analysis, to ensure that there really is the evidence base there to support the placement of some of these zones. Particularly, you're talking about land that's been used for farming, and you're talking about extremely major decisions about what people can do with their land, and we wanted to make sure that there was a very clear process in place and that there was a lot of rigour behind what was being suggested.
On the flip side, you've got environmentalists saying that there is critical habitat up here that is under threat from development and not enough is being done, and they've been quite critical that these zonings have been put on hold while this process is undertaken. Well,
look, we have not taken away any environmental protection here. What we have done is we've simply said when councils are updating their local plans, and all councils across New South Wales are being required to update and modernise their local environmental plans using a statewide template. What we've said to councils is if they're going to apply one of the 4 environmental zones, the new environmental zones, they can't do that. What they can do, though, is just keep the current zoning that's in place. So we're not taking away any existing environmental protections that currently exist. We're talking about new zones. So what we're doing now is we're going out there and we want to talk to people about this issue, and we also have hired a consultant to go and visit some of these sites to be able to report back to the Minister on the issue.
The Tweed Council just last week decided to push ahead and have conservation measures included in its local environment plan. How's that been met?
Well, I'm not sure exactly precisely how we've responded to Tweed. If it only happened last week, we may not have actually formally responded as yet. I'd have to get back to you. But as I said, councils at the moment have got local environmental plans, which are of they might be very old, they might be not so old. If they've got where they're seeking to apply these new environmental zones, we're saying no. Whatever the zone currently is, you need to keep that. That may be a rural zone. It may be an existing environmental zone. We're not taking away any protections that currently exist. But what we are saying is that if you want to apply these new zones, we want to have a close look at it. And that's why we're going out to Kyogle, Lismore, Ballina, Byron and Tweed during the month of February, and we want to get feedback from people at those community consultation sessions on this particular issue.
Mark Skelsey's with me. He's from the Department of Planning, and we're discussing the LEP consultations. The date's now been set for LEP consultations. It specifically revolves around the E2 and E3 zonings that have caused consternation in our region. How will the sessions be run?
Well, they're community drop-in sessions. They're not public meetings. We're not proposing to do a formal presentation. The point of the consultation sessions is that we want to hear from people. We want to hear feedback. That would include presumably landowners, maybe people, environmental groups as well. And we want to hear feedback. People do not need to register, and they're being organised across a fairly wide spectrum of the day between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And people come in and they will talk directly to the consultants that we've hired to look at this issue, who are Parsons Brinckerhoff. And they also, we're proposing perhaps to have maps available so people can point out areas they're concerned about, and issues that are relevant to them as well. But people don't need to register, they just simply turn up and have their say.
Will this ultimately, I suppose, come up with maps and lines on maps that are more relevant, that are more detailed, perhaps than what has been suggested by councils up to date?
Look, I don't want to preempt exactly what's going to come from this review. I mean, what we are saying is that we're now about to enter the listening stage, or the consultation stage. We have spoken to the various local governments, or in fact I should say the consultants that are undertaking this review have spoken to the various local councils. The next step after this will be site visits, and the consultant proposes to undertake independent visits to sites within each local government area, assessing the application of environmental zoning in relation to the actual evidence of environmental significance. Then we'll produce an interim report, and then basically it will then go out for further feedback, and then the recommendations will be made to the Minister for Planning and Infrastructure. So still a little way to go with this particular review.
Okay. Stan from Rosebank's rung in with a question. Good morning, Stan. What's your question for Mark Skelsey?
My first question is, why has I have the 1988 Environment Plan for Lismore City Council.
Yeah.
Now you tell me why there has been ever since an encroachment into into environmental zones, and is that not the result of a change of land use? Because if you take 1988 back in the 60s, I've been here since 1960, you would be now zoning all that was grown for bananas as prime agriculture, but today you're zoning it as environmental.
Well, I mean, I'm not, I don't have knowledge of every site in every single LEP, but this is precisely why we're holding community consultation feedback, and the one we're holding at Lismore is the Lismore Workers Sports Club on Tuesday the 19th of February. And if you have a particular issue about the way that your land has been zoned in terms of environmental...
I'm talking right across the council area, not individual areas.
Stan, I don't think Mark has specific information. He's giving general information about the process. We've got a few callers, so we might have to move on. And please do keep any questions general in nature. Councillor Diane Woods has rung in from Byron Shire Council. Good morning.
Good morning.
What would you like to ask, Mark?
My question is two parts. One is that the Parsons Brinckerhoff actually recommended e-zonings in our LES.
Right.
Which we paid a substantial amount of money for. They're now supposed to be doing an independent review, and the fact that we have probably about 1,800, if not more, properties in Byron Shire, do you feel that your 2 sessions of 3 hours, or whatever it was you just quoted, is going to be enough to cover the concerns? And there's massive concerns up here.
Well, we'll have to assess based on the number of people we get to the sessions about what we do in the future. We will see. We have had people say to us there is massive interest in this issue, and is it going to be enough? And we will have to assess that. So that's something we'll look at. But let's just get through these sessions that we're currently proposing from February 18 to 25. In terms of Parsons Brinckerhoff, they were appointed after a competitive tender process. We believe they're specialists in environmental planning and ecology. They obviously clearly have knowledge of the far North Coast region. This is the reason why we've appointed them, and this is what we're announcing today.
Was there a second part to your question?
Well, my question was about the validity of the independent review, considering that they also recommended those zonings in our local environment study, which we paid a lot of money for.
Well, they're now working for us, and we hope that they provide an evidence-based analysis of these issues, and that's what we'll be seeking that they provide.
Diane Woods, thanks for calling in.
Thanks.
And thank you to Mark Skelsey for joining us this morning. The sessions, they start next Monday the 18th of February in Kyogle?
Not next Monday.
Monday week.
Monday week, yes, they do Kyogle. Monday the 18th at Kyogle at Kyogle Memorial Hall. Just so you know, Joanne, now we have a website address, www.planning.nsw.gov.au/reviews. Just a slight problem with our website at the moment. I need to get fixed, so that website address is not operational, but I hope that it will be very shortly.
No worries, and we'll put all the details on our website as well.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Joanne.
Mark Skelsey from the Department of Planning, and we will put all those dates up. They range from Monday the 18th at Kyogle through to Monday the 25th in the Tweed. Your heart is